My name's Amanda, and I'm a compulsive overeater. And God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited and nervous at the same time. And I just I love being in this society of Overeaters Anonymous because the society that I've come from has been one of very it's been very lonely. It's been very suicidal. And it's been very loud. That's the society that I've come from, which involved only me and my thinking, me and my thinking, um, which has got me in a really vulnerable state a lot of the time in my life. So this society, I get to feel that I'm not alone. That feeling of unity, that feeling of hand in hand, walking hand in hand into the archway of freedom, and that feeling is second to none. Sorry, the sun has just decided to come straight in the window now, and I feel a bit blinded, but that's fine as well. So yeah, I'm just really, really grateful to be here. And I'm going to start from the beginning because what I have learned in Overeaters Anonymous is that my story does account. And the reason why is because I need to share how this disease has ravished my life. And if you're new to Overeaters Anonymous and it has not ravished your life in the same way, that is okay. Um, I was really, really confused when I came to Overeaters Anonymous because I'd stood on the scales of I'd stood on the scales of every professional. I'd spoke to every professional. I'd been to every stop along the way from being a little girl. And from my earliest memory, the food has done for me what the big book calls elusive. Right, this is elusive. I don't even know. I can't even explain what food does to me. But it does give me a sense of ease, of comfort, of belonging. Not for too long, but it does give me that, and it always will give me that. Um, and that was from my earliest memory. By the time I hit around 10-year-old, I was massively obese. I was about three sizes bigger than the average normal 10-year-old. Um, my mum would take me to all the pain ways. I've seen every dietitian. I have oh God, I've I used to my mum used to be in so much pain watching me go through what I went through, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop for her. I couldn't stop even though, you know, um my weight was upsetting my mum and dad, um and I would be picked on, and I was very angry, and I was not passive with this disease as well. I really wasn't passive. I wasn't passive and frightened and scared. I learned to shut my weight about. That's what I learned to do. I learned to protect myself. I couldn't stop eating, so I had to use that weight for my benefit. So that was when the kids tried to push me around. They absolutely thought twice, because I was bigger than them as well. So I learned to be very angry and take it out on the world. And I did not absolutely have a clue what was wrong with me because everything that the professionals were saying to me really made good sense. Like if I didn't eat as much, I would feel better. If I lost weight, I would feel better. You know, um, and it was true. I used to feel a lot better. When my mum and dad would give me a diet and I would stick to it, I used to feel a lot better. And when I would lose weight, which would never be a lot of weight. I couldn't keep the food down long enough. I've never been able to keep weight off. I would feel a lot better about me, but I couldn't stay on that pledge. What I found it was a pledge that I was trying to stick by. I was trying to go, right, the dietitian said I have to, so this is the pledge I'm going to be making. My mum and dad would say, we really care about your weight, we really care about you, this is the pledge I'm going to be making. And and I would really have that will. The will would be there, and I'd be feeling really enthusiastic about getting the weight off and sticking to a diet plan, and followed by incomprehensible demoralisation, and couldn't work out where that line would cross over every single time. So that was from 10, and that happened all the way through my life. But the ways of managing weight got extremely dangerous. Drug use, all the pain ways, which obviously wasn't as dangerous, but they are dangerous for somebody like me. Because they kind of affect me mentally. You know, when I look around the room in a pain way and everybody seems to be able to do it, and I can't, and I wonder what's wrong with me. Followed by laxatives and vomiting and bulimia and compulsive exercise, and still managing to stay 3 sizes bigger than the average weight, and still managing to stay 2 stone heavier, and still being morbidly obese, even though I was extremely bulimic and compulsive exerciser, and all those lovely things that came with being untreated. And what I mean by untreated is lack of power. That's what untreated means for me, lack of power, because I can take pledges and I can stick photos on the fridge of myself, and I can go on the scales every single day to try and demoralize myself into being something different, and swearing to myself and going to church and confessing to the church. I did everything, you know, and I would be followed by lack of power because I couldn't control the first one. I couldn't control the thinking behind the first one. It would never just be the first one. When I came to Overeaters Anonymous, I knew that I suffered from something that once I put it in, I wasn't going to stop. I knew that. I already knew that. So even knowledge wasn't keeping me well. You know, I read every self-help book. I got to diagnose why I compulsively over. Oh, my mum and dad were addicts. You know, I was dragged up. I was, and I was raised in the same household as a brother that eats very similar to me, but doesn't have what I have, which I'll get down to that in a sec, which I find is absolutely extremely like, wow. To see the normal eater and to see me, I'm like, wow. You know, I live in a household with a son and a husband who are normal eaters, and I'm like, wow. And you know what's more funny? They eat for the same reasons as I do. In A Vision for You, it talks about people drinking for a sense of a release from care, from worry, from boredom, for conviviality, for community. People drink for these things. I eat for those very same things. I eat because it's a sense of community. I eat because it relieves me of boredom, of worry, of care. I eat because of those things, just like the average normal person does. In the big book, it calls them normal folk. So those normal folk that eat for those reasons, I eat for those reasons as well. I have a physical allergy. I have a physical allergy. I set it off and don't know what's wrong. I eat for the same reasons that they eat. And what distinguishes me as a distinct entity is that once it's in my body, it isn't going to stop. It's beyond my mental control. So I picked up for boredom, for the sense of boredom, for the sense of worry, for the sense of release. And now I'm eating beyond that, beyond. And going, well, why is it that I have that? Why is it that I have that? Why is it that I have green eyes? This is a part of my nature. This is a part of my nature. I do not know why I have this allergy, but I can bet you a bottom dollar that those with a peanut allergy do not ask why they have a peanut allergy. They just abstain from eating peanuts. They don't say, I wonder why. I wonder if I can read a self-help book that tells me why I have a peanut allergy, and have to be convinced of anything otherwise. So even with that knowledge, I still found myself picking up and eating again and again and again. Even coming to Overeaters Anonymous, getting the best sponsor, working the 12 steps from the big book. Well, if I'm not putting the food down, I can work the steps all I want. It's not going to work if I've still got the back window open, which
You've been assessed, Amanda.
thank you very much, which I've learned to have these like analogies as I've went along that have really helped me. So my house is like this house, it's got all the windows open, and I close them. The obvious windows, I close them, like with sugar and flour for me is one of mine. And really getting down to the honesty of my own disease, and the things that cause this phenomenon of craving, the allergy, the physical allergy beyond my mental control. And I start to close the windows, but I leave one open in the background. And it's called something like, I like to call it, it's not as obvious as the plate of peanuts. It's like blended down in a soup. I don't see it, but it's that my body's still going to have the same reaction to it. So that can look like a real sugary food to something that is savoury but got a lot of sugars added to it. My body's not going to get the same thing, surely not. And it does every time. And it caused me the phenomenon of craving beyond my mental control. And those were the windows I just wasn't willing to shut. But I have an illness that doesn't discriminate, it doesn't care what I'm eating. My body has a reaction to it. And that's something that I had to concede to my innermost self. So I had to have a real experience with a doctor's opinion, is what I'm saying. But followed by that was a feeling of was a feeling of rock and hard place, because lack of power is my dilemma. Not the best sponsor is the lack of my is there going to be the treatment of my dilemma. Not the amount of meetings that I go to is going to be the treatment for my dilemma, but lack of power. But unfortunately, I can't have that power by myself. So I can not go to meetings, I can not sponsor, I can not work the 12-step program, and I find myself not within that power that the 12 steps is promising me in all of my affairs. Spiritual awakening as a result of all my affairs. I didn't know that I needed a spiritual awakening as a result of all my affairs, because I just thought that I was unmanageable and powerless over the food. But what I found is I have a mind, problem centers in my mind, that will invite me back every single time for the release of care, for the release of worry, for the release. Because my life is very worrying. My life is still very, very worrying. I still have stuff that goes on, crazy stuff that goes on. That shouldn't be happening to me. I'm a spiritual being, but it does. It does happen to me. I suffer from real life stuff. Um, and I need a different sense of release from care, boredom, worry, anxiety, the thinking that goes behind the way I think I control my life. And usually it starts with my altruistic movement, which use a lot will always be the substitute to the food, right? Because I've been set free from the obsession to use food as a friend, as a release. Right? I've been set free from that. But any discomfort that I have, usually if I sit in it long enough, then I've needed to, guess who starts to talk? And it doesn't scream at me like it used to, but I hear it. I am your friend. And yous are the substitute for that, because yous have become my new friends, in that overrides this thinking that I have, that anchors me again. And yous point me to the right power, and what I find is I'm becoming to find that I have a rearrangement of emotions, ideas, and attitudes. Not even naturally, it just happens to me the moment I opt out of trying to control any life problem, myself, my recovery, anything. It's like as if I just shot everything up in the air and go, I have no clue, and my way isn't going to work. That's what my 12-step program is teaching me to do. And then I'm able to gain direct access to power. And what I mean by power is sometimes that fourth dimension stuff makes me feel like I'm losing my mind, right? Sometimes I can just feel like I'm floating. It's crazy. I think of those. I think of that time when Bill W picked up the phone to the doctor and said, "I feel like I'm losing my mind. Do you feel like I'm losing my mind?" And he said, "Whatever you have, I suggest you keep hold of it." And if this power is releasing me from the mental obsession that used to scream to me to put the first one in, then I'm going to keep doing that. and I'm coming to the end of my time. So I'll put my number in the chat. Anybody that needs anything from me, please get in touch, and I'll just leave it there. Thank you.